projected to be initially. Does the injury, how does it affect them? Not much, because this team is basically just worrying about April anyway. He'll come back. Hopefully he'll come back healthy. They still have enough on this team to keep this team competitive until he comes back. It's not like it's going to be a huge miss. But basically, this is the same team that they had from last year for the most part. So, no, it doesn't affect them that much.
All right, Jess.
Fellas, I actually disagree with you, man. I think the Rockets actually do have enough to compete with the Warriors. They may not necessarily... They're definitely not the favorites, as we all know, but I do think they have the necessary horses to compete with Golden State. And right now, I think this Chris Paul injury, it doesn't affect the Rockets as much in the short term as it does in the long term. I think CP3 was brought here for the playoffs. When the game slows down, when palms get sweaty, you need someone like CP on your squad. You need a leader like that on your squad. James Harden, as we learned last year, that Game 6 of that Spurs Western, not conference finals, the semifinals, he collapsed. So you realize that James Harden cannot be relied upon as much as you may thought he was in those crucial moments. So that's why Chris Paul was brought there, specifically for the playoffs. But right now, I think they're just bringing him along slowly. I mean, I think if it was a playoff game, he probably would play. And they're just playing the long-term game with him, and I'm cool with that. And this year is, like you said, been a transition year in CP3's career. So I think how far they get in the playoffs will matter on if he stays or not. And I think there is a chance that Melo could come there next year as well, because he is going to opt out of that OKC contract. And we'll see. I think it's a 50-50 chance for him to go anywhere. So we'll see how that ends up.
Okay, everything that you just said, I totally disagree with. This team is not on the level defensively as Golden State. They still don't have an answer.
That I disagree with.
They still don't have an answer for KG. They're not as deep as Golden State. Chris Paul has never done anything in his career playoff-wise to show you that he is a big-time player in those big-time playoff moments.
When is the last time you watched a Chris Paul playoff game? He hasn't done anything in the playoffs?
What has Chris Paul done when he was in the Hornets? What has he done? I mean, Chris Paul's basically the reason why the Los Angeles Clippers were choke artists. Guys don't want to play with this guy. He dribbles the ball the hell out of the ball. Flashy, yes. He's one of those players. You'll have your numbers, you'll have your ESPN highlights, but it doesn't equate to wins in big moments. This team is not better than Minnesota. This team is not better than San Antonio.
Wow. Well, that is 100% false what you just said. The fact that you brought up highlights.
That's getting heated.
That's about all Chris Paul is.
The fact that you brought up highlights with Chris Paul lets me know you don't watch many Chris Paul games, because he is a pure point guard. He is the purest point guard in the league. Name me another pure point guard in the league.
What does pure point guard mean anymore?
A floor orchestrator. That's what a pure point guard is.
A point guard.
Name me one better pure point guard in the league. Name me one better.
Well,
not a scoring point guard, a pure point guard, a John Stockton, a Mark Jackson.
Let me answer your question. The definition of pure point guard has changed. Let's get to nostalgia.
No, it has not. No, it hasn't changed. The definition of something could never change. It just adapts to the times. It's a different type of point guard.
Everything in the NBA has evolved. That point guard that can't score, that's just going to get you 10 assists, he's nothing in this league anymore. You got to be able to score at that position now, because there's so much of a perimeter game now. You got to be able to score. You have to be able to control the whole offense, and you got to be able to play a little bit of defense. And at the end of the day, it all equates to wins.
And what you just named everything that Chris Paul does well. Chris Paul's 7-time all defense.
It doesn't equate to wins.
7-time all defense. How does not? He's been consistently his team to get you 50+ wins.
And
is that not wins?
And what does he do in the playoffs?
He plays in the playoffs. The fact is that his teammates get injured in the playoffs. How was he a bum? Well, last year he averaged 29 and 10 against the Jazz in the playoffs.
Anything in the playoffs.
He averaged 29 and 10 against the Jazz in the playoffs last year in the first round when Blake went out. Are you forgetting Blake went out? Blake was there. The Jazz were the second best defensive team in the league last year. That's what the Jazz were.
How many
That's what they were.
has Chris Paul been into in his career?
But basketball is a team sport. It's not an individual sport.
He's played on some really good teams.
He's played on some good teams, no great teams. He's played on good teams. Well, we all know that's zero. But that we all know that's zero. But
how many times has Chris Paul been in the second round in his playoffs in his career?
Probably about 6 or 7.
No, he has not.
To the second round?
Second round.
To the second round, he's been there.
How many times? I'm curious to know that answer. How many times?
Yeah, it's probably around 5. I actually have to look that up. I
guarantee you, it's going to be 1 or 3, or 1 or 2. Yeah, Chris Paul has the
No, it's definitely not 1 or 2. It's over 2. It's definitely. But that still doesn't. You're changing the argument. But you're changing the argument.
Chris Paul goes in the same category as Carmelo Anthony. He looks great in the regular season. He'll go to his All-Star games. He'll make his money. But you know what? It doesn't.
You can't even talk about Melo in the playoffs because he's barely even been there lately. So you can't even.
Melo
in that playoffs.
Lately.
He went. That's what I'm talking about. Lately, last time he went to the playoffs was when Jason Kidd was on his team. That was the last time when they played against Indiana Pacers in the second round.
In Melo's career, him and Chris Paul is pretty much the same guy. Great regular season.
In terms of success, yeah.
Not much playoff success. So when you're looking at a guy that had very limited playoff success, and now all of a sudden, you think just because this guy with very little, if not no, playoff success comes to the Rockets with another player that has very little playoff success, now all of a sudden they're going to beat the Golden State Warriors.
Listen, man, this is a life lesson we learn about a lot of players. Situation always dictates success. If Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan had swapped careers, Kevin Garnett wouldn't be as successful as Tim Duncan is. The same type of thing. Is situation dictates success. Chris Paul's situation, he hasn't always been on the top 3 team in the West that year that he was playing. So how can you necessarily say that he is supposed to get to the conference finals, supposed to get to the NBA finals? If anything, it's a compliment that you're saying you believe that he should be able to get there.
Show me before you assume that he can do it. He hasn't done it.
And all right, ding. Let me pull up the stat. I got the stats up right here. So New Orleans, his first year, 12 games in the playoffs. So that's essentially the second round. The Clippers, 2012, 11 games. 2014, the Clippers, 13 games. 2015, 12 games. So that looks like four times.
They've been in the second round every time except that first year.
How many years has this guy been in the league?
About 11 years, I believe now. Something like that.
10 or 11 years. This great point guard, the example of who should be this great
12, point guard, 12 year right now.
In the league, been around 12 years, 4 times second round, no further. That says it all.
The last time I checked, there's 5 guys on the floor. It's 12.
Here's what I'm gonna say, and we're gonna move on to the next topic. Man, I need to do a show with y'all, like a 3-hour show with the two of y'all. We be going all day, like a 24-hour show. But anyway, I think Chris Paul has not been on a team that can truly compete for anything. Now, part of that you can say the people around him, you could say part of that is his fault because he signed whatever contract he signed. But I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna move topics. But at this point in his career, whatever team he goes to next, it is his fault if they don't win anything, because I think he needs to lay low and see how everything flows out and what team he's gonna sign with. If he signs with a team with one superstar, then it's his fault if they don't win, because he has to know going into it, I can't do everything. I'm not a all-world type point guard where I could put a team on my back. I would say that he's definitely not that type of player. But Chris Paul, whatever decision he makes, whatever team he goes to, is on his shoulders if they win anything. So
I agree.
So let's move on to Eric Bledsoe saga, which is, completely got out of hand. He tweets and says, "I don't want to be here." His coach gets fired 3 games into the season. Why? First of all, why do you let the guy get into 3 games into the season in the first place? You already knew what you had with Earl Watson. You knew that from 2 years ago. Why fire him now? So I want to get your thoughts on Earl Watson, and where do you see Eric Bledsoe going? I'll start with you first, Mike.
Earl Watson, Phoenix Suns. Suns finally just woke up and said, you know what, we don't have anything here. We're rebuilding this thing. Let's clean house. We got Watson. He may not be the coach that they envisioned, to move forward with. And they said, you know, why waste time? Let's immediately right now, let's start kind of like an audition to see what the next guy got. Now, where does he go? I think one of the more popular choices may be New York, but that's kind of a little confusing because when you look at New York, you're looking in a situation where you got Frank Mclain, no, French Frank, we all gonna butcher his last name.
Right.
The French Krilla.
And I think the rumors is him and Willie Gomez Jr. And that's an interesting trade because if you're New York, you gotta literally sit there. You don't know what you have in French Frank, Frank the Frenchman, whatever we want to call him. And Willie Gomez, if he's not going to be in his team's rotation, then why keep him out there? You got to get something for him. The problem that the Knicks have is that you now have a logjam at center. And when Joakim Noah comes back from the suspension, it's going to be even more of a logjam. When you bring Brock Cantor over here, I got 4 centers. You got 4 guys who can play that position. It's really going to have 2 slots. So you got to figure out, really very fast what you're going to do as far as who's going to be in that rotation. Now, Eric Bledsoe, why he may fit with the Knicks, you got Kristaps Porzingis on this team. You got to start getting players around Porzingis because you have to, and big time players. And a guy, and you're going to have to take risks like this and hope that this guy can be healthy and add to it. Because if he's healthy, he's an all-star point guard. He's a 20-plus point guard that can probably get you 10 assists. He's an all-star point guard if he's healthy. So you got to take chances like this because if you're the Knicks, you don't have any other way to get big-time players. You're not going to have the money to spend to lure these guys in. Maybe you could cross your fingers and hope you get these guys in the draft. It's, pretty much don't whatever in the wind. You got to maybe consider taking these chances because the worst thing that can happen to the Knicks is that you don't surround this guy with quality players. And you know what? This guy becomes a free agent and he leaves. And you're standing there holding an empty bag.
Right. Exactly. All right, Jess.
Yeah, man. Eric Bledsoe, really good player. I'm always been a big fan of his. Like you said before, averaging over 20 last year. I think he's a really, really good point guard in this league. And if I'm him, and if I'm his agent, I'm pushing hard for 2 trades. One, the first trade, if I'm him, my first option will be to go to the Bucks. I think the Bucks are the best place for him. I think they should trade him there. Try to get back Brogdon, and both teams get better. I think it's a win-win deal for Phoenix and Milwaukee if they do make that swap. The Suns most likely will have to either throw back in a draft pick or maybe another piece, or they can do it even swap. To me would still suffice. I think with Bledsoe over there, with Giannis, with maybe Greg Monroe, with Thon Maker, Chris Middleton, Jabari Parker coming back, I think that's an excellent lineup in the Eastern Conference, in a weak Eastern Conference. And I think that would definitely get them to the 2nd seed. And I think for the Suns, a win on their side is that they're getting Malcolm Brogdon, reigning Rookie of the Year, and he fits their Suns' youth timeline. So I think the timeline of their young players with Devin Booker and Josh Jackson and those boys, I think he can grow up well with them. So I think it will be a win for the Suns. And the second spot for him is the Knicks, as you said before. I think that also will be a nice spot for him. I think he'll be allowed to cook over here in New York. And if I'm the Knicks, I'll do it in a heartbeat. I mean, honestly, the French Krilla hasn't really shown much promise. I mean, it's still early. He's only played about 1 or 2 games. But his preseason wasn't necessarily overwhelming. And I think you can have a chance to get your hands on an Eric Bledsoe, an all-star caliber point guard, especially in the East. And I think he can average 20 there. And like you said before, there's a chance for Knicks to get all-star caliber players because they're not coming here in free agency. You might as well get them in the trade. And hopefully you can convince them to stay. And I think he'll be great going over there with KP. And listen, think about it. The Knicks right now, their starting point guard is Jarrett Jack. My goodness. Jarrett Jack is starting for the Knicks. So they need an upgrade. No matter what.
I hear you, and I agree with so much what you're saying. But it's not as clear cut with the Knicks as we want to say. You got to look at the Knicks like this. Frank, I think he played maybe 1 preseason game, and I think he really got his feet wet last night, and he was kind of impressive. If this kid Frank turns out to be a big time point guard, he's 19 years old, he's 6'5", 7-foot wingspan, he plays defense. He impressed last night. If you get rid of this kid for Eric Bledsoe, who's already 27, 28 years old, injury prone, and this kid Frank turns out to be one of those guys, Oh my God, you will be killed.
Yeah, but look at the Knicks' history. There's a lot of players that they have drafted that has never panned out in the Knicks uniform, but they went somewhere else and prospered.